Hey guys, what is up? It's Antonio. Welcome back to another episode here on Gladiator Disc Golf. Today I'm at Jack Culverson Disc Golf Course here in Princeton, Texas. Tomorrow, the day after I'm filming this video, I'll be planning a flex here with Matt. You guys have seen him on the channel before. Super excited, but here's the thing. Even though I've lived within 30 minutes of this course for 3 years, I've never played this course before. So I wanted to bring you guys along so that you could see me figure out this course one day before a flex tournament, which means that it'll be 1 round, and I'm kind of going to walk you guys through the shots and everything that I'm going to be taking. So there are 6 things that we want to pay attention to when we are playing a brand new course. Because that's quite a bit of information, this video is going to be split up into 2 videos. So part 1, we are going to be talking about the first 3 things on that list. The first tip is to analyze every option you have on every single shot. This means the drive, this means the approach, this means from the rough, and even your putts, and maybe practicing putts from a couple different areas. The second tip is to take what the course gives you, while at the same time, the third tip is to actually rely on your strengths. Hole 1, it's a pretty open shot up until you get to the green. On this hole, we have an opening to the right of the basket, and so it's super important that whatever I throw, I get the disc to land in front of this opening so that I have a clear access route to the basket. It's funny how I could go from 15 minutes of warming up and feeling good to as soon as putting the camera on, messing up both my drives. So here we are. I'm probably only a little over 100 feet away. Not the best drive I've ever had, but you know, this is good practice in case tomorrow with the nerves and everything, I can know what it's like to be here. I'm going to take either the Rhino or the Bobcat, gonna kind of see what the wind's doing, and let's approach it for a par. I like the Rhino here because it's a little bit slower. It'll let me put a little bit more spin on it, especially with this wind coming in, gonna make it fly a little bit more overstable, and it won't get too carried away being in a tailwind. So let's go ahead and let's try and get inside of 15-20 feet for the par save. I'm considering either going high or low, and it's kind of tricky with this wind because it's coming and going. So I think I'm gonna kind of aim to put the disc about 10 to 12 feet up in the air, because I don't want to go too high, otherwise the wind is going to lift it and take it wherever it wants. And too low, it's probably just going to dig into the ground, and a Rhino is not going to get me any skip. Whew, I almost rang it up. So just like that, I put about 10 feet up, and you saw the wind pick it up. If that was any higher, that would have been really, really bad news. So that was perfect. Let's go ahead and let's tap in for the par. So with hole 1, we saw tips 1 and 2 come into play. I had to look at every shot option that I had, and then I had to take what the course gave me. On the drive, I could go backhand or forehand. I opted to go backhand, and it didn't really work out for me. But when it came to my approach shot, I had to, in a sense, swallow my pride. I knew the only real option I had was to go backhand. So I took what the course gave me in tip number 2, and I threw the backhand, I committed to it, and I ended up being parked for a par. This is not a super hard hole, but it's definitely a hole that you don't want to take a bogey on. Alrighty guys, so we're here at hole 2, and we have to look at all the options that we have. Now you see that basket directly in front of me? Well, my first thought, because this is actually the second time I'm recording on this hole, is I thought that was the basket. But actually that's hole 16's basket, and I didn't know until I got to hole 16 that I played the wrong basket. The real basket is right over there. A much trickier shot, a much more difficult line, and so it's something that I'm going to need to work on here, and that's why I wanted to re-record this, because I didn't want to show up tomorrow not having played this hole and not knowing what I'm going to do. So when I look at this hole, obviously there's a strong forehand line. There is a backhand line for the Anheuser, but that is really touchy, and with a right to left wind, we're talking Anheuser's gonna get pushed down. So we're gonna have to throw the forehand. Not sure when I'm gonna throw it yet, but this actually works out for me since forehand is my strength. Now I just need to decide which disc I'm going to throw. So I'm going to go with my Innova Star Eagle because I need to put this up decently high to give it enough time to maybe flatten out, glide, and then fade towards the basket. All right, so depth perception is everything. Clearly I'm not as far from the basket as I thought. So on hole 2, tips 1, 2, and 3 were all employed. I had to look at all the options that the hole was giving me, both backhand and forehand, and I had to take what the course gave me, which was pretty much you need to throw the forehand. It's your best option here. Now, tip number 3 was making sure that you throw to your strength. Sometimes when you have both options, it's really good to use the one that lends itself to your strength. In other words, on hole 2, I was able to throw the forehand. Now, did I perfectly execute it? No, there are some other reasons behind why I didn't execute that, but it was definitely playing to my strength. Here we are on hole 3. It's a par 4, 517-foot shot. So this is a hole I've never played, but it's pretty open and it wraps around and enters into those trees behind me. Now, there really is no danger on this hole unless I go left off the tee. And so I really want to make sure that whatever drive I have, I stay to the right. So I'm going to aim my drive to the right, not only for my release point, but also where I want to land it. Because I truly feel that on this hole, it would be best to make sure that I end up way more right than going way too far left. So the course is giving me the option to throw both the backhand and the forehand, but because I want to go left and I've been early releasing just a little bit with my backhand today, I'm going to opt to throw the forehand with my Star Eagle. I'm going to throw this on a little bit of hyzer just because we do have a headwind coming, and I want to make sure that I have enough hyzer to hyzer out and finish to the right to hopefully give myself a clear look at the basket and hopefully get that birdie. Flippy, 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 turned over a whole lot. We will see where we ended up there. I'm gonna throw a second shot with my streamline drift just to kind of see, you know, would the backhand have been a better play? And if so, it's probably what I'm gonna do tomorrow. That was a much better throw, no risk at all. That's probably what I'm gonna do tomorrow, unless there's a sneaky backdoor gap that I know that if I land left, I'll be okay. So here we are on my first drive. It's definitely more open here than I thought. It definitely breaks in. Now, I broke one of my other tips on purpose. You'll have to see part 2 for that, but just a little quick snippet. You always wanna make sure you know what the hole looks like and don't trust the tee pad sign. So I'll get into that a little bit more detail in part 2 and I'll reference this situation. But here I have probably a little bit less than 200 feet to the basket, so that's a fairly good drive, especially for a little bit of a shank job. And I'm definitely not in the creek, so we're gonna go ahead and approach. And my backhand drive is not too far from here, and it has an open look to the basket as well. So for my approach to the basket, I have both a backhand line and a forehand line. The issue with the backhand line is because I would be wanting to throw my putter, I have a pretty low ceiling here. So if I go backhand, I'm probably gonna have to club up to a mid-range to my origin so that I can throw it nice and low and it'll have enough glide and speed to get to the basket. If I go forehand, it's not 100% easier because I do have some rough on the left, and if I pull it just a little bit, then I'm going to run into this situation of scrambling for par. And I'm really trying to get the birdie here. So I'm gonna take a few seconds, consider my shot, and I'll let you guys know what I'm gonna do. So after considering my options on this hole, there really isn't one specific shot that the hole is giving me, so I'm going to go with my strength in this case, and it's actually not the forehand in this situation. Because of the layout of this approach, I feel a lot more confident in throwing the backhand with my origin and being able to throw a little bit lower to prevent it from hitting any branches up high and hopefully settle up right near the basket. to help me keep the shot nice and low, I'm actually squatting a little bit so that I don't have to change my angles too much. Both good and bad, a little too much hyzer, but I did get a forward skip, so we'll see how it plays out. So here I am on my second shot. I really don't have a way to get this birdie, so I'm going to take my medicine and lay up for the par, a stress-free par, and that'll put me at even for my round. At this point, I definitely think after hole 3, I could be 1 or 2 under par. I definitely think I can easily birdie hole 2, and this is a totally gettable birdie because it is a par 4. Let's go ahead and let's tap in this par. We're at even, not horrible, I'll take it. I followed tips 1, 2, and 3. I looked at all the options the course gave me. I understood what the course was saying, that the best shot to take on this hole, and then I also played to my strengths. Did it work out perfectly for me? No, and that's just a lack of execution. I hope you guys have found these first 3 tips helpful for playing a brand new course. Remember, you want to look at every option that the course is giving you. Then you also want to consider the shot that maybe the course is forcing you to take. And then you need to also consider your strengths. Sometimes the course will play into your strengths. Other times it will not. So you ultimately have to decide what you're going to do. I know those first 3 tips maybe sound like they're a little contradictory, but every single hole is different on a course, and so you have to be able to take all 3 of those tips and make sense of them together. Because if you can't make sense of them together and you try to force your strength on every single hole, you're going to have a really hard time. I know from experience, being forehand dominant for a very long time, I had to force a lot of shots that weren't necessarily the best shots, and I never really shot better than people who had the backhand line on those. And so, in fact, I typically shot worse, whereas they might have gotten a birdie or par, I may have gotten a par or bogey. So you definitely want to not always play to your strengths. Sometimes you have to take what the course is giving you because it's the best and honestly, the smartest shot. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. Make sure you go ahead and like it. That helps me out a huge bunch and lets me know that you guys want to see more stuff like this. Well, stay tuned for part 2. That'll be coming out shortly for tips 4, 5, and 6. Until next time, guys, have a great round.